Do y'all hear that? Listen closely. That, my friends, is the sound of the NBA playoffs.
Playoffs? Playoffs?
With that being said, let's break it down. Welcome to another episode of Sideline to Sideline with your boy Tyson Ross, where I bring y'all my first round NBA playoff predictions and give you some insight into how I think the dominoes are going to fall in this opening round. With that being said, I am known to tell the future on occasion, but there is a full disclaimer that I am in no way responsible for the money that you lose at the casino. We start our predictions off in the Eastern Conference. The surprise number 1 seed Celtics take on the NBA's version of Jekyll and Hyde and the Chicago Bulls. The Celtics this season have turned into a well-oiled machine, while the Bulls have been marred by season-long inconsistencies and therefore toiled in mediocrity pretty much the entire season. The offseason dream combination of Jimmy Butler, Dwayne Wade, and Rajon Rondo has not exactly gone according to plan, as they shipped out Doug McDermott and Taj Gibson to the Thunder midseason in what seemed like a rebuilding move at the time. The Celtics may not have a star to match up with Jimmy Butler, but they are the definition of team. Between Isaiah Thomas's MVP-type campaign, Al Horford coming over in the offseason to upgrade the defense and offense in the front court, and two-way contributions from players like Avery Bradley, Marcus Smart, and Jay Crowder, the Celtics, I think, can go on a deep run in the Eastern Conference this year. I really see Coach Brad Stevens leading this team to a first-round win. I think pretty easily. Chicago could give them some trouble. I'm taking Boston in 6 games. Our next matchup in the Eastern Conference involves the number 2 seed Cleveland Cavaliers and the number 7 seed Indiana Pacers. The Pacers are led by their small forward Paul George, who has been a man possessed lately on an absolute tear. Actually almost led them to a double overtime upset of the Cavs a little over a week ago. Secondary contributors for the Pacers, their point guard Jeff Teague and their center Miles Turner are nice pieces, but let's be honest here. Are any of us really picking LeBron James to lose a first-round playoff series? If you are, you're a hater. And that's coming from one of the biggest LeBron James haters that you will find. The man has been to 6 straight NBA Finals, for God's sake. The Cavs may have stumbled down the stretch, ultimately losing the number 1 seed in the conference to the Boston Celtics, but I think that they flipped the switch when the lights turn brightest. I'm taking Cleveland in 5 games. And in my personal favorite matchup of the first round in the East, we have the number 3 seed Toronto Raptors taking on the 6-seeded Milwaukee Bucks. This may be the most intriguing first-round matchup we get in the Eastern Conference this year. While the Raptors have been perennial contenders in the East for the last few years, I'm not entirely convinced that they've done enough to put themselves over the top in the conference this season. The pickup of Serge Ibaka midseason from the Orlando Magic was pretty brilliant, but I'm not sure that it was enough to make them a championship-caliber team. The Milwaukee Bucks, on the other hand, are a team that's leading the NBA in a revolution that's been defined by length and athleticism. First case in point is their 6'11" point forward Giannis Antetokounmpo, otherwise known as the Greek Freak, who has turned into an absolute superstar this year, made his first All-Star game this season. I think that his best years are definitely to come. MVP 2020! Surrounded by the always pesky Matthew Dellavedova at point guard. Stop! Go, bruh! The rookie sensation Malcolm Brogdon on the wing, and their sharpshooter Chris Middleton, who's also the team's leader. I seriously think that Milwaukee poses a threat to Toronto in this matchup. If Jabari Parker was still in the lineup and healthy, I'd be seriously inclined to take Milwaukee in an upset over Toronto in this matchup. Ultimately, I think the firepower and experience of DeMar DeRozan, the shooting guard for the Raptors, and Kyle Lowry, the point guard, are just too much for the Bucks to handle, and they make Milwaukee wait at least another year before they become serious threats in the East. I'm taking postseason experience in an all-star backcourt in this matchup. Give me Toronto in 7 games. For our 4th and final matchup in the Eastern Conference first round, we have the number 4 seed Washington Wizards taking on the number 5 seed Atlanta Hawks. With all due respect to Paul Millsap and company, I simply can't see how they can contain Washington's dynamic backcourt of John Wall and Bradley Beal. This simply isn't the same Hawks team we've been accustomed to seeing in the past few postseasons. They lost really key pieces in Al Horford, Kyle Korver, and Jeff Teague in the offseason. On the flip side of the coin, Washington's point guard John Wall is having an MVP caliber season. Brad Beal, the shooting guard, is probably playing his best basketball as a professional. Their small forward Otto Porter has become the ultimate Swiss Army knife this year, and not to mention they probably have the deepest, if not one of these deepest teams in the NBA rotation-wise. Oh, and the Wizards are 3-1 against the Hawks this season, winning their last 3 games. With that being said, give me the Wizards in 5 games. Now we switch things up a bit and bring you guys the Western Conference side of the first round. With our first matchup, we have the Golden State Warriors, the number 1 seed, against the number 8 seed Portland Trail Blazers. 2-time reigning MVP, 2014 NBA MVP, the 11th most accurate shooter in NBA history, the most likely 2017 Defensive Player of the Year, and the 2015 NBA Finals MVP. Those 5 guys are all on the same team, and they wear a Warriors uniform. Now, if you could show me a recipe to beat a team like that, you just let me know. I'll sit here and wait. And wait. And wait. Until then, Damian Lillard and company are just going to have to settle for a date with disaster. There's not much to say about this series except for that it'll probably contain a lot of points and most likely have Portland Trailblazers fans heading for their car by the end of the third quarter. I really feel like Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are kind of like the 300 Spartans, and they're just destined to lose, but they're going to go out there and give it their best shot.
Tonight, we dine in hell!
With that said, give me the Warriors in a 4-game sweep. Sorry, Blazers. Our second matchup in the Western Conference first round sees the number 2 San Antonio Spurs taking on the 7th-seeded Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are a lot like the Clippers in that they never seem to quite get over the hump. I don't think this year's any different. Unfortunately for them, they're just older and less talented than in years past. What Memphis does have going for them is that they typically play the Spurs pretty well and actually have a 2-2 record against them this season. Marc Gasol, the center for the Grizzlies, and their point guard Mike Conley are great players in their own right. Unfortunately for them, I just don't think they're talented enough to mask the weaknesses that they have that the Spurs coach Greg Popovich is pretty sure to exploit. For the Spurs, what can I say? Here they are again. Year after year after year after year. They just won't go away. Stop! Go away! Every year the Spurs are in NBA title contention, and I really don't see how this year is any different. Kawhi Leonard, the small forward for the Spurs, who already has an NBA Finals MVP under his belt, and is the 2-time reigning Defensive Player of the Year, has legitimately turned into a regular season MVP candidate this year, and has arguably become the best two-way player in the league already. His squad includes 3 probable Hall of Famers in Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and Pau Gasol, not to mention the top 5 power forward on their team, LaMarcus Aldridge. Hell of a combination. In addition, the Spurs have possibly the greatest coach in NBA history in Greg Popovich at the helm patrolling the sidelines. I just don't see how the Spurs can lose this series. Give me them in 5 games. Our third matchup of the Western Conference first round playoffs is probably the most anticipated out of any matchup in the first round this year. We have the number 3 seed Houston Rockets taking on the 6-seeded Oklahoma City Thunder. The beard burst the Brody. Former teammates. One-man shows. 2 top MVP candidates. The basketball gods have seriously blessed us with probably the best matchup that you could ever see in a first round. Ooh, ooh. With all due respect to the other players and coaches in this series, this showdown is all about James Harden and Russell Westbrook trading buckets, accumulating triple-doubles, and probably having games that end in the high 120s, possibly the 130s. Both men have a couple critics left to silence, and you can be sure that they will lay everything on the line in this series. Like I touched on in the last episode, I personally think that Houston is the more talented team overall, but I also strongly believe that Russell Westbrook is on a one-man mission to destroy the Houston Rockets and their so-called defense. You can't handle the D! Get your popcorn ready and prepare for a series full of some serious fireworks. This one is going to be absolutely unprecedented. With all that said, I'm taking Thunder and Westbrook in 7 games, maybe a buzzer beater to win the series. For our final matchup of the Western Conference and the first round of the playoffs for that matter, we have the 4th-seeded LA Clippers taking on the 5th-seeded Utah Jazz. Watching a Clippers game the other night, I couldn't help but think, why the hell hasn't this team won a championship yet, let alone been to an NBA Finals? The talent is undeniable between point god Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, the freak of nature at power forward, and DeAndre Jordan, probably the most athletic center in the NBA. Not to mention J.J. Redick stroking the rock from three-point range. What's the issue? And then it all came to light. Boneheaded plays and a serious lack of tenacity is what ultimately keeps holding this team back year after year. Oh no! We suck again! Chris Paul can't make the other guys want to be great, and I'm really starting to wonder if Blake Griffin is ever going to be anything more than a glorified stat patter at this point in his career. But their opponent, the Utah Jazz, is a young team that actually really excites me. Their coach Quinn Snyder has this team rolling after missing out on the playoffs last year. Their dominant center Rudy Gobert, probably having the best season of his career so far, is a top 2 contender for Defensive Player of the Year with Draymond Green this year. Gordon Hayward, their all-star small forward, is going to get a huge payday this offseason. And then you've got the rest of the pieces. Rodney Hood on the wing, Joe Ingles on the wing, George Hill playing fantastic at point guard this year. Derek Favors, Joe Johnson, Trey Lyles, the list just goes on with this team. Tough matchup, tough series. Could end up in LA if this thing goes 7 games, which I think it will. But I'm going to take the upset here. Give me the young up-and-coming Jazz. And that wraps up our Western Conference and NBA playoff predictions for round 1. Leave your guys' comments below. Tell me who you got in these series. I'd love to have some nice little arguments with you. Throw me some stats. Let me see what you got. Until next time, this has been Sideline to Sideline with your boy, Tyson Ross. Stay beautiful, you filthy animals.